So in our last lesson, our blog was functioning okay, but the visual elements and the layout needs improving, along with a few issues with the usability, like the user being able to navigate to the different routes easily. So in this lesson, we're going to work on improving the look and feel of our blog application. So we'll work on creating the CSS rules first, and then we'll go back to the actual templates and make a few little tweaks there. So I'm just going to quickly add in some new rules and I'll explain them briefly as we go along. So the first thing is just to set up some defaults in terms of actually formatting our HTML elements to the border box layout, and this will just ensure that our form controls, our input boxes, will actually line up, and also to create a class of container that will actually contain our forms and our listings of posts. Next we'll add some styles to our labels, inputs and buttons. So for our form controls, I'm just basically going to set them as block level elements and add a bit of padding to them. And for our button, I'm just going to give it a blue colour with a white text on top. And whilst we're here, we'll actually grab that blue colour and make sure our links are all the same colour as that as well. And the next thing we'll do is set up some rules for our success and alert flash messages. So giving the success a green and the error a red colour will just help them to stand out on the page when one of those flash messages occurs. So finally, let's just add a few CSS rules for the posts when they're displayed either on a listing page or on an individual page. And of course you can add whatever styling that you like if you've got a design already in mind, but we'll leave it at that for the styling for the moment, as this is just to give you an idea of what you could do with your blogging application, and we'll just stick with this simplistic design for the moment. So whilst we've created these new styles, they actually need to be loaded in on each of the views that we created in the previous video. And whilst we could copy the head tag from the index.ejs template and paste it into all of the other templates, let's actually create a header and footer partial that we can then include in the other templates. And with the header and footer created, let's import those into all of the other views. And let's head over to our the web browser to see what that now looks like. So our blog posts are coming out a little bit nicer to read. But if we head over to one of our forms, you can see they're taking up a bit too much space because they're filling the entire container. So we could probably do with reducing the size of those. And we also need to set up rules for when we're creating posts, as we need to make sure the text area is also included as one of our form controls. So let's sort out the forms and the text area in our code. And we'll just make all of our forms half the width of the overall container. And you'll notice when we complete one of the forms as well, we're actually getting the flash messages with the style applied, which makes them a little bit more obvious for the user. So before we finish up this lesson, let's just make a few alterations to the navigation of the site. And the most obvious thing that we can do in the all post listing is to actually put a link to the individual post when we're displaying the list of posts. And when we're on an individual post, We'll just put a link back so that the user can get back to the all posts listing. And finally, on the login and registration views, we'll give the user the option to go to the registration page, and similarly on the registration page, we'll give the user the option to log in. So now when we're viewing posts on our listing page, we can see a link to go to the individual post, and once the user's finished viewing that post, they can then go back to the all post listing. And I have just noticed that the author isn't displaying on the meta information, so we've probably referenced that incorrectly in our templates. So in our meta information, I actually put username when it should be author is the data that's stored in the database. So let's fix that in our listing and individual post page. And refreshing the page, you can see that the user is now being displayed, but we could do something about the date format as well, because the ISO string is a bit difficult to read and we don't actually need the exact timestamp of when the post was written. And there are several libraries out there such as moment.js which will handle this nicely for you, but just as a quick way of actually getting the date of when this post was published, I'll just get the first 10 characters of the date, which will give us the year, month and day of the post was written. Let's check out the navigation on the login and register pages. And because those pages are so similar, it might be worth putting a heading tag on there just so that we can differentiate them. So at least that's now a little bit clearer as to which page the user is actually on. So we'll leave the styling and the usability of our blog project here. Hopefully you can see lots of improvements that could be made, and you've probably got your own design that you want to use. Just to wrap up our blog application, our final video will be to add some security and session features.